Like what else? What's your biggest concern about the whole recruiting process?
Honestly, my biggest concern would definitely be the interviews themselves. I Most of the interviews that I've gone through at Auburn are highly behavioral, with the exception of FMA. That was an interesting interview process. They ended up throwing in some technicals in there. They asked me how many pizza shops I thought were in New York, and the typical,
Okay.
how many golf balls can fit in an airplane.
And a
Um,
747? Oh, good gravy.
Exactly. So that's the only technical type interview that I've ever gone through to get a position. But we did mock interviews all of last semester and worked on some of the technical guide. And for some reason, I just don't really click with those kinds of questions, which was part of my reason to pivot to private wealth.
So definitely talk to as many private wealth folks as you can and ask about the interview process. I mean, definitely do that. But my sense is that those questions like the golf balls and the 747 and pizza shops in New York, those strike me as a little more consulting types of questions. Consulting is more think on your feet, do math in your head, figure it out on a napkin kind of stuff. Whereas I didn't find that with investment banking as much. Now you had to be sort of ready for that, but I interviewed with like six different firms and no one ever asked me a question like that. At least again, a consulting style question, think on your feet. They cared way more about how well did I understand what a P&L was, what a balance sheet was, cash flow statement, how did those things connect? And the math wasn't hard. It was more about knowing what the steps were and knowing how the numbers flowed and how things connected and demonstrating a working knowledge of the financial statements, not just rote memorization of what the answers were. But at the end of the day, it's so much about using the language. So you've like your hard technicals that are more math oriented. You have your softer questions, which is more like, why are you interested in private wealth? But then you're going to have, I think one thing that's really important to get experience in for private wealth is going to be like stock pitches. You've got to be able to articulate why is an investment compelling, and both from like an overarching story and strategy, but also from a technical and a financial underpinning, right? Talking about margins, talking about, PE ratio. Why is this company a good value? Why is there value that the market hasn't recognized? And being able to tell that story. So it is about telling a story through numbers versus doing a bunch of math in your head.